this posted to our YouTube channel after a couple of days so that people can go back and review the presentation, and those that weren't able to attend live has access to it as well. I appreciate those of you that are able to attend live. This is the first in a series on connecting with some of our partners in adult education, and just wanted to make sure that you knew what resources were out there. And USR is one of our core partners that we work with under WIOA. So our guests today are Brandon Watts from the Utah School for the Deaf and Blind, and Adam Rushforth from DSBVI, which is the Division of Services for the Blind and Visually Impaired at the State Office of Rehabilitation. And if I got all of those acronyms wrong, you guys can correct me as you get into your presentation.
Sounds right to me.
Yeah, you got it right.
Perfect. Well, I really appreciate you being here, and I guess that's all I have to say. I really appreciate you being here, and I'm excited for your presentation. So I will let you take over, Brandon.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to get to serve and get to present with Adam Rushforth. Adam, maybe we'll just tell a little bit about ourselves, and you can tell them a little bit about yourself. And so my name is Brandon Watts. I'm the Outreach Director for Utah School for the Deaf and the Blind. Now, what does that mean? It means that we work with the students who are preschool through post-high that attend their neighborhood schools. And so we provide large print and Braille, training on how to use low vision devices, and whatever accommodations are needed for the students to be successful in their school and or charter school. We serve about 400 students, and it's important to know that we actually only work with about 30% of Utah's student population. The bigger school districts, they have their own services, but we have the smaller school districts and the charter schools, of which we have about 30 districts and about 27 charter schools. And I supervise 22 teachers of the visually impaired who provide these services, and 12 orientation and mobility specialists that work with the kids on traveling using their white canes. So that's me. Adam, please.
Yeah, so my name is Adam Rushforth, and as was mentioned, I work with the Division of Services for the Blind and Visually Impaired. I am the coordinator over the training department here. We primarily work with adults. They don't have to be, but we primarily do. And we have classes ranging from how to walk with a cane, orientation mobility, home management, cooking, cleaning. We have classes in Braille, technology, computers. We even have a fiber arts, which is knitting, sewing, daily living skills, as well as a wood shop with power tools and stuff that you would find in a typical high school wood shop. We, Division of Services for the Blind and Visually Impaired, has field service instructors, and those field service instructors can go out to people's homes all the way throughout all of Utah and work with people in their home. And we also are we are under the Utah State Office of Rehabilitation, which helps people who are blind, or not just blind, all disabilities, but I primarily work with those on the blind side, getting jobs. Also, one of my staff that is a report to me is our employment specialist, and so we do work with people trying to get them both independence in their home, but also independence economically, employment. So that's a little bit about us.
Thanks, Adam. So we are going to share on accommodations for all learners, basically. So, and I guess I would love, it keeps buzzing and we keep getting people that join in, but we'd love to hear, I guess, from you. So does anybody have, and you don't need to share their name or anything, but do you have a student who has low vision and yeah, that you're currently serving right now? So, oh, we've got, Kathleen says she has 3. We do not speak English. Got it. Okay. So we will definitely be able to help out with the on the blind side, but as far as the English goes, you're going to want to partner with somebody who is more specialized as far as that goes. And Kathleen, Kate says she has one as well. Are they totally blind? Are these totally blind refugees? Do they have some vision, or are they totally blind?
Can I just unmute and speak? It's faster.
You may, Kate. Yeah, and Kathleen says that they are totally blind. Okay, very good. Thanks for sharing. And Kate, go ahead.
My student has cerebral palsy, which causes her eyes to roll up really far and off to the left. So it is not so much that she's blind, but she's visually impaired because of her muscular issues. Got it.
Okay, very good. Well, we're so glad to get to present to you today. So let me go ahead and maybe, Adam, maybe could you share just a little bit about maybe your story and your vision?
Absolutely. So a little bit, as when I was born with a birth defect that caused my eyes not to fully develop. And so about the age of 8, I was just jumping on a trampoline, we got it for Christmas, and my retina's ripped. And since then I've had, I don't know, 8 surgeries trying to put them back. And so go from about age 8 until about 31, I just progressively kept losing more and more vision. And I remember I was at college, I was on BYU campus, and I was just walking around, and all of a sudden I wasn't using a cane. I did not want to be identified with someone with, didn't want to be treated differently, I guess, because of my vision loss. And all of a sudden I just, I had some vision loss, and I was running into things like a chain linked fence and a pole in the middle of the doorway. And I remember calling my family, and I was talking to my mom. It was around Mother's Day. And she says, well, how's college going? And I said, it's going great, doing well. And then I told her about these funny instances where I just ran into things. And I remember something that she said to me that just changed my life. She kind of got serious, and just because I was just kind of joking around, she goes, Adam, stop living a lie. And it hit me. And my first reaction was like, I'm not living a lie. I'm not lying to anybody. I'm honest. But I pondered on it, and I realized that I was trying to be someone I wasn't. I was having vision loss. I was going blind, and I was hiding it. And from that, the very next day, that Monday, I pulled out a cane. I brought a cane. I'd been there for a while, but I never used it. And I pulled it out. And from that day on, I've used a cane. And since then, I mean, now I am totally blind now. But, vision loss is a tough thing for people mentally, don't want to accept it or don't want to embrace it. But it was interesting. Once I started using the cane, I went and got some training, how to read Braille and how to do different things. A lot of tasks that I had struggled with became easier because I had a different skill set to be able to approach them. So anyway, there's my story.
Thank you so much for sharing, Adam. I've got the PowerPoint up now. It says providing accommodations for students who are blind and have low vision. So the first picture that I'm showing you is for somebody who has retinitis pigmentosa. And I believe, Adam, is this what you said?
No, that's not what I have. I had detached retinas, but not
just the detached retinas. Okay, yeah. Got that. Mm-hmm. Okay. So retinitis pigmentosa is just basically the retina, which is the back of the eye that processes the images and translates the information into the brain to process the images. If somebody on the left could see this cute little girl with perfect vision, the person on the right would have retinitis pigmentosa, and it kind of distorts the central vision of the student. So somebody with this kind of a condition might not look you directly in the eye because they're trying to use their peripheral vision to look at you. So if you know that there's somebody you're working with that has this, and you might think, oh, well, they're not looking me right in the eye. Well, that's because they actually are trying to look directly at you with what vision they do have left. So don't discourage them from doing that. They will use their accommodation so that they have the best viewing area to view their papers, to view the board, or you. So somebody with a condition called glaucoma. So this, if somebody with normal vision was looking at this beach with an island off in the distance, then the person below them has early glaucoma where it's starting to, they're starting to lose their peripheral vision. Advanced glaucoma, it's starting to become a lot more tunnel. And then extreme glaucoma is they just have the center of their vision, probably a pinhole of vision left. So looking at the extreme versus the normal, you can see that they, are able to view what's in that central vision, but a lot of the picture, a lot of their viewing area is cut off. And so there are sometimes when this affects them so much that actually print no longer becomes useful to them. And even if you were to make it big, it would block out most of the lettering because their viewing area is so small. So Braille might be a more useful way, Braille or audio. But this is what we teach our students that we know have this condition, for example, retinitis pigmentosa, because it's something that could degenerate over time. So where right now they could have normal vision, in the future they might have that tunnel vision, and so we teach them skills in anticipation of that, right, for the future. So just to kind of give you an example of those conditions. So this next slide that I have up is just a picture of what it's like to have low vision with the different acuities. When you go to the optometrist and you get your eyes checked, they have you read an eye chart. So if somebody with perfect vision, which is 20/20 vision, was reading this eye chart on the left, somebody with 20/70 vision would read it like how it is there, 20/200. They can read probably the top two lines, then 20/400. They can probably barely read the top of the line on the what's called Snellen eye chart. Now, what that means when we say 20/70, 20/200 is that somebody, if, for 20/70, for example, somebody with good vision at 70 feet, somebody with this condition would have to walk up to 20 feet to see the same thing.
And so Brad, I'm going to jump in at one other explanation that someone gave me, and I love this. 20/200 is, let's just say, 10% of vision. So 20/200 is the legal definition of legally blind.
Right.
And it's the equivalent of having somebody hold up 10 fingers, but they could only make out one of them.
I've never heard it explained that way, Adam. That was really, yeah, that was great. That was a great explanation. So that's, yeah, Adam's right. The legal the definition of legal blindness is somebody who's 20/200. Now, let me just say, these kids, I don't know. We only work with the child population, third or age 3 through 22. But these kids are really, really good at faking their blindness. Especially if they have 20/200, they might appear to, be able to run around and do things. But when it comes to things up close and, other things like depth perception and so forth, yeah, we want to make sure that they don't slip through the cracks and that we're providing them with the accommodations that they need so that they can be successful, because it is very straining for somebody with 20/200 to look at print. They're holding it like about 2 inches away from their face to even strain to see what the print is. And so, okay, Adam shared a little bit about adult services. I'm going to go right into the accommodations portion of this. And so, hang on, let me share a different screen here. Oh, sorry, give me just a second while oh, there it is. Okay, share screen, accessibility. What we've put together for you all is a checklist for things, and it's for if the child is low vision, or if the I should say student, because these are adults, right? If the student is low vision or is totally blind. So when it comes to if you're sharing PowerPoint presentations, so you're going to want to make sure that your presentation is high contrast. And the best thing that you could do for somebody, especially if they're legally blind, is put your text with white letters on a black background. And there are certain things to be avoided, like red on black, red on green, blue on yellow, and things like that, because the contrast is just too much. And that's why I just default to, when I'm sharing my presentations, I have the white lettering on the black background. It's the easiest, the nicest thing for your student who has low vision. And so simple slides with minimal text per slide, and then also just make sure that your images aren't blinking or flashing or using sparkling animation. It's going to be a little bit too much for your student who has low vision. Now,
Brandon, I got a comment to make real quick on
sure.
the contrast with. I mean, I don't know how many different eye conditions there are, but I know growing up, as I was losing my vision, a lot of people have preferences. So sometimes the best thing to do is ask the student what is best for you, because some people like black on white, some people like white on black, which, you know, the reverse, and then different things. So sometimes just reaching out and just saying what contrast is easiest for you to see.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Adam. Thank you so much. So talking with your student and asking those questions are really helpful for you, and also gives them, you know, buy-in and a little bit of more ownership of their learning as well, because if they know that you are, you know, stepping up for them, they'll step up for you. You know, not always, but I can see students really wanting to improve and work hard, knowing that there's somebody who has their back. And that's really what we're hoping to accomplish with all of this, is just having and working with your students to accommodate for them. So for PowerPoint presentations, when you're presenting to somebody who's totally blind, be aware of the information that's being received by your audience with vision throughout your visuals. So the same information should be voiced for them. So when you're describing, or when there's a picture that comes up, just give a very you know, brief description on the salient features of what's being shown, the picture. And so make sure you speak all the text on your slide, describe the pictures or the icons that you use, and remember that color alone doesn't indicate the meaning. So if it says all of the numbers in red mean this, well, somebody who's, you know, totally blind isn't going to be able to know what that means. So make sure that you're indicating what that means. So all pictures, charts, graphs that contain information or data could have alternate text, and what that means is a description of what is there. So when you're thinking about your fancy graphics and so forth, it's like, okay, what are these graphics? What information is to be gained from these graphics, and make sure that that is explained to your students who are totally blind. Anything else as far as PowerPoint presentations go, Adam?
Nope, sounds good.
Very good. So for documents and handouts, if you're giving out a paper copy for those with low vision, make sure that, and again, check with them to see what their preferred font size is. But a good rule of thumb is at least 18-point font, and avoid serif fonts. You can see that we've used Arial for this one. Arial is my go-to font for everybody with everything that I use. And so scanned PDFs are not to be used unless they're adapted by a human transcriber, because when you make a copy of something, the information is not always accessible for your students. So just make sure that that what you're sharing is adapted by a human transcriber, retyped if needed, because then they can use it with screen reading software. Accessibility checkpoints in programs, like they have those in Microsoft Word and PowerPoint, they indicate that the content follows your intended reading order. Documents, Word, PowerPoint, Excel are formatted and saved as HTML or PDF accessible. Let's see. Now, if you're presenting something that's digital, like a digital worksheet, make sure your font size is at least in 12-point font, again, avoiding the serifs, and then all the other things that we had mentioned up in the print text. The text is not underlined unless it is a hyperlink. Hyperlinks use descriptive text, Text is used for hyperlinks rather than URLs, and text formatting is not used exclusively to convey information. And maybe Adam, you can explain a little bit more what I'm trying to explain here. Like, what's the bottom line, I guess, with this?
I'm not quite sure what you, well, I kind of want to back up real quick,
Please.
back to the PDF part. You mentioned this, but I just want to clarify it. So PDFs in general are okay. There are two versions. There's the ones you create, let's say you converted a Word document or you created it directly in Adobe and it became a PDF. And then there's the scan where you just went to a scanner, took an image, a picture of it. And so inherently, if you take a picture, the computer's really not going to be able to read it. Now, there are some softwares that you can convert it, but it takes a little bit of additional skill level that, and the conversion may not be as accurate. So that's why the scanned version is we just don't use those. They have to be kind of natively. And then also, I still find my personal preference, I would rather have an HTML or a Word document over any PDF, just because of the navigation that is built into Word or a web page document to be able to find it, copy it, just navigate the page. So if I could get it in Word or PDF, I'd always choose Word. Mm-hmm. And remind me, the part you were talking about, the hyperlinks and the text and different things like that. What was the?
So basically, we kind of talked about bulleted and ordered lists designated using. So in other words, make sure that your bullets and your tables go in order so that it doesn't get confusing. And maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
So you know, it's interesting. So a screen reader in general is this is for the blind, is very linear. So when I listen to a web page,
Adam, real quick, I need to step away for just a second. If you go ahead and keep talking, I'll be right back.
So it's very linear. And so it almost in my mind visually, because I always mental map, what does this look like? It kind of is just like from top to bottom. But a web page may have a third of it is kind of something on the side and menus and tabs. And then in the middle third or 2/3, it has, charts and tables. And so just it takes a new skill level because the computer's programs can kind of sort this out. But not everyone, when they're new to blindness or just at a beginner level with technology, can do it. And so anyway, just how it's laid out can make a difference of reading a chart. If it says all the numbers, 2000, 2008, 2016, 2009, and then later gives the information that goes with each of those years, it may not make sense because it read it out of order, even though visually it might look like it's in order. So I think that's what he's referring to. Are you back, Brandon?
Sorry about that. I was trying to wrap up that quick. Yes, I'm back. So when it comes to, now let's talk about, did you talk about documents and handouts for the students who are totally blind?
You've come to ask about.
Not really, other than, I mean, my big thing is, so I guess understanding the group here that we're talking to, and I'm guessing that when they're working with a student, it's going to be a very small classroom. And so some of these rules are kind of like, hey, I'm presenting in front of 30, 40 students, and I just need to be mindful. But if we're working one-on-one trying to help somebody get a GED, there's probably a lot of this communication going on. And I heard someone saying a language barrier. So I had a few comments when we get to the language aspects. But as far as documentation, just work with the individual, because if they don't know, then I think these recommendations are what you fall back on. Right. But if they have a specific preference, then that's probably the one I would go with.
Yeah, so this is just to kind of put them on all of yours radar, but definitely reach out to the person. And if they don't know what works best for them. It might be a good idea to work with Adam on doing a low vision evaluation, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But let's just make sure we cover, when it comes to documents for those who are totally blind, make sure that the handouts are provided in Braille, made available in the same time at the same time as the print handouts. And that is if your students who are totally blind are Braille users. So digital, the files are available for viewing using Microsoft Office applications with computer JAWS and or Braille Note devices. And that is if they have a Braille Note device. When it comes to videos, audio description is the gold standard for video content, and a good rule of thumb is that if there's any information being provided visually, it should also be provided to those with a vision impairment in another format, whether that's an audio description, which is preferred, a text or a transcript of the video events, or some other form of accessibility. Best practice would be to work in conjunction with a visually impaired member of the intended audience in order to provide a way for the audience member to participate fully. Bottom line is, if you have to sit next to the person to describe things, then please do, or have somebody that can do that for them. And that's pretty much the same as with low vision or totally blind. But you can also, if the student has enough vision, you can make sure that they're sitting at the front of the class so that they can see what you're trying to show. Anything to add, Adam?
Not on that.
As far as assignments go, if you've got a printed worksheet that you've got on your regular paper, take a piece of 11 by 17 paper and enlarge your scanned copy to 130%. So we have our teachers refer to the functional vision assessment, which gives the preferred font size, the visual acuity, for those with low vision to know what their preferred font size is. A good rule of thumb is if you've got a student with low vision in your class, that if you're printing something out on regular 8.5 by 11 paper, that you take an 11 by 17 paper and enlarge it to 130%. It gives them more room to write on there in case they have to use like a marker so they can see their writing and so forth. Let's see, and for students who are totally blind when it comes to assignments, if the worksheets are provided, make sure you provide them in Braille and they're made available at the same time as print materials for sighted students. Assignments containing only text wanting to be viewed on Braille Note devices are sent to the student using Microsoft Office or Google Drive, like Google Docs. If a student is well trained with how to use their Braille Note device, which is basically a computer with the 6 keys and a refreshable Braille display, then they can view the assignments with that in Braille. If you send it to them in Microsoft Word or Google Docs. Let's see. Math assignments provided in Braille by the person certified to transcribe math using the student's preferred format. There are 2 different codes in Braille for math. There's Nemeth and there's what's called UEB technical. So knowing what the student's preferred format is will be really important. The last one that we have to share is, Adam, anything else to add on to the assignments as far as the accommodation goes? Okay. Again, check with your students, find out their preferred way to access and so forth. Physical environments, provide a large print, high contrast map for their viewing if everybody else is getting a map of the location, and a tactile map for layout of the building. And now I guess, Adam, for adult services, where would they be able to access things like a tactile map?
That's a great question. So for our students, we have tactile kits. And so when we kind of create them improv as far as the section, like if we're doing a street intersection, we can create it just with a tactile map as well as the building. There are companies out there, and I'd have to look them up, but you could submit and say, I need this area brailled out, and they'll do a Braille tactile map. But there is a charge, and I'd have to look that resource up, but there are places that you can do that and they would do it for a fee.
Yep. So as we are, talking about these accommodations and so forth, I think it's really important that the students you're working with who are adults have a contact with the Division of Services for the Blind and Visually Impaired, because these are the adult services that can help facilitate, what their preferred font size is if they were to come in and do a visit with their low vision specialist, and then they can help you understand how you can provide accommodations in the classroom as well. And I would definitely recommend that if you've got a student, that you talk to them about DSBVI and refer them to DSBVI to get, is it a vocational rehab specialist?
Yeah, so let me jump in a little bit, and then we'll be taking some questions in just a few minutes. So I'm hoping if you guys have questions, I'd love to answer them. So the first two things that I think would be crucial would be the low vision evaluation and then a VR application if possible. So low vision evaluation, yes, it's called low vision, but if they even have no vision, sometimes there are services that would be useful and helpful that they can use. They work with just kind of, they are low vision specialists and therapists, but they aren't an eye doctor. So they actually have to have an eye doctor referral to get there. It could be anything from magnification. So maybe they want to read a book with their eyes, but they need a handheld magnifier or what they call a CCTV or something else. They could evaluate it. And some of these magnifiers are pretty impressive now. They're electronic. They could zoom in and zoom out. They can change the color contrast. It's kind of a fun thing just to see some of the products that they have created. And some of these can actually snap a picture and read the printed with an audio computerized voice. So they have all sorts of things. And then there are some even just low tech. It might be sunglasses that tint out certain rays of light to take off the glare, or to, just different eye conditions have greater sensitivity to certain rays of the sun or whatever it might be. And so they're able to do an evaluation to help maximize whatever vision they have. So that's one thing. The other thing is a VR counselor. Now, a VR stands for vocational rehabilitation. The catch here is they have to be seeking employment, which also means that they have to be employable in the United States. So if they are not legally able to look for a job in the United States or work here, then they wouldn't be qualified for those services. But if they meet those criteria, match as well as the disability criteria, and it's not just blindness, there are other disabilities, a vocational rehabilitation counselor can work with them, create kind of an individual plan of employment. And sometimes that could include training, like getting a certificate program or going to college, or maybe providing some technology to help them accomplish a certain task at work to help them either get or maintain gainful employment. So those are the biggest things. And then we at the Division of Services for the Blind and Visually Impaired, we have a training program, which I mentioned as well. I did want to touch upon the language, just kind of share some opinions real quick. And I don't have a study on this, but we've worked with people with various languages and different acquisitions. I do speak Spanish, so I have learned that language, but I would assume many of the refugees are speaking other languages that I wouldn't. We do have here at the training center, we do have like a telephone number we can call to, any appointments we have translating. But my experience, we've had people in the training center that decided that to go learn English, and they went to like a community college. They did different, maybe some of these adult education programs that you guys provide. I'm not sure. And they learned the language and took a year, and it was amazing, the progress. Of course, every individual is different. But it was just amazing. And we've had some superstars come through. And then we've also had some that came and didn't learn English, and we provided some interpretation. And there are some limitations on how much we can provide, but that we do, there has been some interpretation. And the progress, unfortunately, when they don't learn the language, even if we have an interpreter there, is significantly slower. And again, this is just my own personal observation. They still grow, but the progress is so different than when we compare the person that and the individuals that take the time to learn the language and then come for more intense training, it really is a whole world of difference. So that's my personal observation on that. So Brandon, should we open it up for questions?
Yeah, I really just quickly wanted to share the mission statement for DSBVI. It's to increase the personal and economic independence of Utah's blind and visually impaired population. And the secretary there is Jody Duke. There is her phone number, as well as Adam's, if you want to contact them regarding adult services for the students that you are working with that may not know about this. And so, yeah, I'll go ahead and stop sharing. And we will go ahead and open it up for questions. I think maybe people are being a little bit gun shy with recording. So Danielle, I think at this point, that's everything that we would share with the state. If you want to stop recording, we can kind of open it up and make it a little bit more comfortable for people.